In my last video, I spoke about the importance of maintaining some degree of spending flexibility in retirement and the disadvantage of using a more static approach like the 4% rule. So now I'd like to share the analysis and how those spending adjustments might be determined. First, it's important to know that whenever we embark on the retirement journey, there is a spending amount for which we have a high degree of confidence could be sustained for the rest of their lives. So it's not like spending adjustments are happening every year or even every few years. They're happening if there are extreme market conditions that are very rare. Although spending increases may happen more often over time because the assumptions that I'm using within financial projections are so conservative as it is, that as long as the markets behave somewhat in line with historical averages, we're going to find that probabilities of success continue to creep up over time for clients, allowing us to eventually increase our spending as well. But this analysis is more about acute, short-term, sharp movements in the market. In this example, in the white box in the lower left-hand corner, you're going to see this client has about a $2.2 million portfolio with annual spending of $144,000. That's in today's dollars, and that does not include income taxes. On the third line, you'll see funded from the portfolio is $124,000, and that $20,000 difference is because there's a small pension currently. You might also notice that the $144,000 is certainly far more than 4% of the $2.2 million portfolio value, but that's also because we have Social Security in the future as well. And the 4% rule applies only to withdrawals from the portfolio, not total spending amounts. So the red box is where the majority of financial advisors spend the majority of their time when planning. And it's a very important goal, which is to avoid running out of money prematurely. So that is the lower guardrail. And what you notice there that if the portfolio were to drop by about 20% in a very short period of time, we would have to reduce our baseline spending from $144,000 to $140,000. And this portfolio is actually a very conservative portfolio with just about 30% in stock. So a 20% decline is actually extremely unlikely, and I'm actually not sure if it's ever happened before in history with the way this portfolio is structured. So you're talking about a very rare, sharp decline that's highly unlikely, and even that very bad situation would result in a spending reduction of $4,000. Now, that's not a one-time reduction. That is a permanent decrease in the baseline spending. That goes on forever, and then so that $140,000 is the new baseline, and that gets inflation adjusted every year going forward from $140,000. However, the first video talked about the big risk is that most of my clients will probably pass away with far more assets in their portfolio than we've been planning on. And so that's where the upper guardrail comes in. The idea being not to unnecessarily sacrifice lifestyle during their lifetime. If the portfolio were to increase in the green box here, if the portfolio were to increase by 4.5% in a very short period of time, we could increase spending by $8,500 a year. And again, that's not a one-time change. That's a permanent increase in the baseline spending amount. So a very minor increase, which is quite possible, even with a conservative portfolio, could produce a $8,500 increase in annual spending. So the guardrail analysis does a couple different things. One, it provides more clarity around abstract concepts. And what I mean by that is when I do the projections, I always talk about probabilities of success. So in this case, this particular client has a 91% probability of success as it stands right now, as the baseline scenario. That doesn't mean a whole lot to anyone. 91% probability of success implies that there is a 9% chance of an adjustment. Okay, but that doesn't tell us when an adjustment would be needed or what would need to happen for an adjustment to occur. And it doesn't tell us how much that adjustment would need to be. So it's a very abstract concept that doesn't tell us a whole lot. So that's number one. That's what the guardrail analysis does for us, is it provides more clarity around these concepts of adjustments, when an adjustment could potentially be required, and how much that adjustment would need to be. That's much more meaningful information. The other thing it tells us when we can increase spending so that we don't have this risk of unnecessarily sacrificing lifestyle. And the last thing it does, which I think is potentially the most important, is that it allows clients to tolerate volatility much better. When you have clarity around what sort of declines actually impact your life, any other declines that don't meet that requirement aren't as important. They're not as scary and stressful. So in this case, a 20% decline, which again is highly unlikely with this sort of portfolio, when they have a year like last year, which was the worst year in history for bonds, and then a bad year for stocks all at the same time, they were down maybe 10%. That's not that scary anymore when you know that you still need a 20% loss in a short period of time to cause any sort of change to your spending. So it allows people to ride out volatility much better and not make emotional decisions, as those are the decisions that tend to destroy performance over long periods of time. So if we can avoid those emotional decisions, we're already setting ourselves up for a much greater chance of success.